Here's how that works. A bright young guy named Erwin Schrödinger, German, he was a graduate student, and if you'll notice in physics, most of the big breakthroughs occur with young people because they haven't been in the system long enough to understand what's impossible. So they're still open-minded. They can still think out of the box because they haven't gotten educated enough not to be able to do that. So what he said is, well, look, these things come through here one at a time. The photon obviously can't break up into pieces. You know, a photon's a photon. So it must be going through here, and some of the time it goes up here, which was a smaller spot. Some of the time it goes, each one of those photons must somehow pick a place to go, but it always picks one of these spots and never picks the spaces in between. So what he would do is, he said, well, let's say that this photon's really not a photon at all. It's just probability distribution. Now, by that, I don't mean that the photon is somewhere and we just don't know where, and that's the probability of where it is. I mean that the photon doesn't exist as a particle. It's a probability distribution. So, given that it's a probability distribution, some of the probability goes through that hole, some of the probability goes through that hole. In other words, the probability is that some of it could go here. There's a certain amount of probability that goes here. The probability then interferes with itself like a wave, and you get this pattern. Well, when he did that with the math, of course, it worked, and he got the pattern, and the physicists of the day looked at it and shook their heads, and graduate students, you know, I mean, okay, you got the answer, but it doesn't make any sense. Well, then they took his methodology and they applied it to other things of the day, and guess what? It got the right answers there too. And it kept getting right answers. So physicists had to take it seriously, even though it didn't make any sense. Quantum mechanics now is one of the most successful branches of physics ever, and it still doesn't make any sense, you see? To physicists, they still don't understand it.